Good morning, this is Ty Fishman. I'm here on behalf of Representative Julie Calley.
Morning, Ty. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, I'm Jim Tedder with ITC Michigan. We own and maintain all the high voltage electrical lines in the Lower Peninsula and 7 other states.
Hi, it's Peter Dicko with the office of Senator Gary Peters.
Good morning. This is Jody Nichols. I'm also with the Right Place, serving Lake and Oceana counties.
Good morning. This is Tammy Miller with Ionia Sentinel Standard.
Good morning, everybody. Abby Stalker, West Michigan Works.
Good morning, everybody. Ben Wood with the Right Place and the Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jill May. I'm the fundraiser for ICEA.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Patrick Reagan. I'm the village manager for the Village of Lake Odessa.
Ethan Evanstein. Oh, sorry.
No, Ethan, go ahead.
Oh, Ethan Evanstein, Superintendent, Ionia County ISD. All right, Sandy, now it's you.
Good morning. Sandy Walnukowski, Village of Puamo. I'm the clerk here.
Good morning, everybody. Kathy,
Good morning.
Carol.
Good morning, John Bison, Michigan Senate, your senator.
I'm Dave Hodges. I'm County Commissioner for Ionia County.
Good morning, everybody. Ryan Wilson, Michigan One Community Credit Union and Vice Chair of ICEA.
All right, Susan, it looks like I've got the waiting room, everybody admitted. So if you want to go ahead and roll, go for it.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Susan Hatto. I work at Montcalm Community College. I'm the Dean for Industrial Education and Workforce Training and the Chair of ICA. I know we just did introductions, but I do want to introduce our board so I can highlight each of them and thank them. When I first became chair a few years ago, we had some issues with attendance. We don't have those issues anymore. So I do want to thank the board for, their participation, their hard work. So I want to give them a chance to highlight themselves and talk about who they are. And I'm going to kind of call on them. So get ready, guys. Ryan, you get to go first.
All right. Thank you, Susan. And again, good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending. As I said, I work for Michigan One Community Credit Union. I am the Relationship Development Manager. So I do all the marketing and outreach for M1. I've been on ICEA now 2 years, I think. So it's been a pleasure and glad to see so many people here this morning. So get ready for a great presentation.
Thank you, Ryan. Sue, you're next.
Hello again. My name is Suzanne Doms. I am the Executive Vice President, Chief Operations Officer here at Union Bank. Been here at the bank for 45 years, so been in the area for a long time. I am also the treasurer of the ICEA, have been on the ICEA board for more than 10 years, so I don't even know how many more years I have. So I've seen it transition into something really exciting now, and I'm very excited to see so many people on this call today, and hopefully we'll have great interaction and great discussion.
Thank you, Sue. Sandy?
Good morning. I'm Sandy Walnukowski. I'm the village clerk in Puamo. Just a shout out to how great ICA has been. When we were first approached, I couldn't imagine what ICA could do for Puamo, but it has been a real blessing to get to know so many great people and network with them. And they were also very instrumental in helping us get Wilbur Ellis. So we're grateful for that.
Thank you, Sandy. Dave?
Had to unmute. Thank you. Dave Hodges, I'm the chairman of the County Commission Board. I've served on this board, I think, for 6 years now. It's a board that it's a pleasure to serve with. They're hardworking and they're very dedicated. And I see this, the ICEA, moving in the right direction the last few years. So.
Thank you, Dave. Ethan?
Sure. Ethan Ebenstein, once again, Superintendent at Ionia ISD. This is my 3rd year here at Ionia. In my 17th year as a school superintendent. And very happy to be in a rural community after being the last 10 years as superintendent in Kent County. I grew up in Newaygo County and am thrilled to be back in a small rural county where everybody works so closely together and is in cooperation and collaboration and being creative how to support one another. And that's how I view my role on the ICEA. As with past business development organizations I've been with, is how can the education system work with and help prepare people for entering the business workforce and the community.
Thank you, Ethan. I don't think Tut or John are on this morning, correct? I don't see them in the list.
Nope,
So
I don't see him.
okay, awesome. So before I pass it to, I'm going to pass it to have Jessica introduce herself and then pass it to her. But before I do that, I do want to mention we are always looking for new board members. So if you are on here this morning, you listen to the presentation and you think, this is something that, I'm excited about, I want to get involved in, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you about it. There are some opportunities. So with that being said, I will pass it to Jessica so she can introduce herself. And then if you'd like to say a few things about being our sponsor this morning, we'd appreciate that.
Sure. So thank you very much. I'm Jessica Tremontana. I work at Consumers Energy and I'm the community affairs manager and I cover Ionia County. And in English, what that really means is I'm the conduit from company to community. So if there's an issue locally, something I can help you with, please let me know. I'll put my email in the chat, but my goal is to help Ionia County and its residents really understand some of consumers' big initiatives or programs that residents maybe, apply for, and also vice versa. If there's an issue that I can help escalate to address, I'm happy to do that. So I cover Ingham, Eaton, Ionia, and Clinton counties. I live in DeWitt. And good morning. Thank you for having me here today. Consumers is really proud of trying to support local businesses. And we, in the last year in 2020, donated more than $1 million to provide a lifeline to small businesses across Michigan. So we were proud to partner with the Ionia Chamber, as well as the Portland DDA to support Our Town. It's a gift certificate program that provided a match that went straight to local businesses. So what that means is if you bought a $20 gift card, either through the Portland DDA or through Ionia Chamber, you got $20 back matched from consumers. So you ended up with a $40 total gift card. So in Portland, the first round, it took almost 2 days for those gift cards to sell out. And we were able to partner in Portland again for a second round, and we were proud to say that it sold out within an hour. And in Ionia, the chamber worked with us and sold 13,000 community cash certificates. And with that consumer's match, it totaled $26,000, again, that went to be spent at local businesses. So these are businesses that are in Ionia County. We realize that small businesses are truly the backbone of our economy. And it's important to note that at Consumers, we recognize a lot of business owners or families, they're struggling right now. It's tough. And it's because of COVID-19, and whether you've contracted the illness or you're caring for a loved one, or even you're falling on financial hard times. I want you guys to know that there is help available. If you go to the Consumers website, there's a number you can call to coordinate assistance. Our customers, if they're not really sure how to navigate that website, or if they're even a little bit confused and kind of overwhelmed by all the information that's on there, they can even call 211, and that will help them connect with assistance to help pay for a heating bill or identify whether or not they can connect with the Michigan Energy Assistance Program. Another option is for people to go to michigan.gov/treasury. That way you can see if you apply and if you qualify for a Michigan home heating program. So also I should mention that there are programs available to help customers, both residential as well as business. People can evaluate their energy efficiency in their home. And it may not be something a lot of us are thinking right now with everything else that's going on with COVID-19, but it could ultimately help you lower your bills by evaluating that energy efficiency. And as a bonus, it also makes a better impact on our planet. So many thanks for having me here today. Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Travis, for coordinating this meeting. I'm looking forward to hearing our speakers. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jessica, and to consumers as a whole. That community gift card match that you did across the state, that was amazing. I'm still in touch with a lot of chamber folks out there, and that was really a catalyst in a lot of communities. So kudos to you guys for doing that. And I do want to say, obviously I'm Travis Alden, Director of Business Development at The Right Place, and I'm kind of the boots on the ground for ICEA. I've been in the saddle a little over a year now. It's amazing how time flies, but I do want to acknowledge that the ICEA Board of Directors is a great group of people. They've been a pleasure to work with, and the support from that organization and those folks is nothing short of incredible. So thanks to all of you for all of your hard work. I know it's kind of a thankless job, but you make it a pleasure. In terms of our program this morning, before I get into kind of the snapshot of our work over the past year, I'm really pleased to be able to introduce our new president and CEO at The Right Place. Randy Thelen is here this morning. I don't want to steal any of your thunder, Randy, in terms of an introduction. I will say that it's awesome to have a fellow boomerang coming back to West Michigan. I'm born and raised in West Michigan, spent a bunch of years out in Eastern Iowa of all places, but came back when we started having kids, and kind of one of those Michigan boomerang success stories. So Randy, thank you so much for being here, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. And Travis and the team on the board, thanks for having me. It's Travis alluded, I started here as the new CEO of The Right Place a week ago Monday. So this is day 9. And so I'm still, although I've been in West Michigan throughout my life at different points in time, I know the streets, I know the area fairly well, but it's good to be back, and it's great to be leading The Right Place. And I'm really looking forward to working with you at ICEA. I will tell you, and maybe you can pick up from my last name, that I'm born and raised in that area, just outside of the county in the small town of Fowler. And I spent a disproportionate, I was thinking through all the time I spent in Ionia County growing up, sledding at Bertha Brock Park, trading baseball cards and going to concerts at the Free Fair. And I can't remember what it was called, but was it just the block where teenagers used to drive around the block constantly in Ionia? I was one of those kids causing trouble and all the things you do as a teenager. And Gus Macker, I saw, was it Scott, I think, from Gus Macker. I got a trophy in a box right now somewhere in my basement from Gus Macker way back in the day. So I'd love to play again. I just don't know if my knees and ankles can take it, Scott. But plenty of great Ionia County memories. And so I'm really looking forward to, I'm thrilled to be back in the region. I'm looking forward to working with you going forward. We will have an aggressive economic development effort. We have for 30 plus years. We will for the next 30. We know that growth is what really drives communities. It really what drives the quality of life enhancements for the people that live in our communities, right? The more job opportunities, the more investment, the more tax base, the more we can enhance the quality of life for individuals. And that's really what drives our work at The Right Place, and what drives me in the work that I do. Just a quick snapshot, and I'll turn it back to Travis in, again, day 9. So we'll have plenty of time in the months and years ahead to get to know each other. But our economic development strategy really boils down to 3 basic buckets. First, we're going to focus on people and making sure that we have the right training infrastructure, the right education infrastructure, so that our people can be trained and developed to their best and highest potential, and that we can attract people as well, that we have a market that provides career opportunities that is attractive and brings new people to the area. And third, we're going to, under people, we're going to make sure we focus on everyone. When we've just completed up some research with the Brookings Institution and found that, frankly, not all parts of our community, not all segments of our community have enjoyed the economic prosperity that we've seen these last 10 years. And as we get through this pandemic and look forward to getting back on the rise again, we need to make sure everybody is able to engage and participate fully. And so we're going to be leaning into that as well. So people is the focal point. Second focal point would be place and place making. And when I think about Ionia County, my dad grew up in Portland with his 10 brothers and sisters, and Portland has been just transformed, right? The Riverwalk, the downtown. I took my ACT in the old Portland High School, now the new high school. And I know throughout the county, there've been other changes as well, but place really matters. And a lot of times, like a downtown Grand Rapids and all the investment and progress that's been made here gets all the headlines, but throughout the community, throughout the region, we need every town, every city to be invested in themselves in a way that makes it attractive and distinctive and enhances the quality of life for everybody. Certainly seen some elements of that in Ionia. Look forward to seeing more in the years to come. And that also then, of course, makes it attractive and makes it, as we get the people, as we get the talent developed and attracted to the market, the place then helps keep them here. And then the final sort of leg of the economic development strategy here is prosperity. And this is maybe the traditional economic development that we all think about: attracting new companies, growing existing companies, helping new startups, creating those jobs that become enhancers for quality of life, that allow people to grow their income and get on a career track, not just a job, but a career track that enhances their position in life. So that's really what motivates us, and that's what drives us, and that's going to keep us focused in the years to come. We'll have more details on those three pillars of people, place, and prosperity as we continue to refine the strategy. But make no mistake, this is a regional effort. We're all in this together, and we need every corner of the region to be prosperous. And I know Ionia County is ready to play its part. So I look forward to working with you. You're in great hands with Travis on our team. He's terrific, and he knows that anytime he has the support of the entire team to drive project activity throughout the community. So I look forward to meeting you. I look forward to working with you, and I wish you all the best today with your annual meeting.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Randy, and thanks for being here. And that's one thing that I will say, even though, I guess to everybody here, even though Randy's only been in the saddle for, a little over a week, all of us on the rural team have already felt that kind of commitment to that kind of regionalism, vision and that sort of thing. It's not just about Grand Rapids. It's not just about Kent County. It's really about all of West Michigan, which for somebody like me who's kind of hardwired as a rural guy, really is awesome to have that. So thanks so much for your leadership, Randy. I'm looking forward to working with you. I'm just going to kind of fly through some of the basics here and get into a little bit of the detail about really the impact of ICEA over the last year or so. I'm not going to duplicate what Randy just said about kind of what economic development is all about and kind of our mission. I like to put this on here in kind of this statement of what economic development is. The story I like to kind of tell is that I've been in this business for about 15 years, and a lot of times I still feel like my parents don't know what it is that I do every day. This definition here and kind of all these different pieces of the community that economic development touches on really helps to kind of tell that story. So I know there's a lot of text there, but really the way I distill it down is really the whole point is to make people's lives better. And I think that's why all of us, do what we do every day is with that goal in mind. And how we go about doing it, I know kind of the old school focus of economic development is kind of that chasing smokestacks, brick and mortar, that sort of thing, business retention expansion. And that still is a big cornerstone of what we do. But with the Right Place's new strategic plan that came out about a year or so ago, it really is a lot more holistic. There really is a lot more to it. And Randy touched on all of these. And while 7 strategy statements is kind of a lot to conceptualize, that people, place, prosperity, those 3 buckets, I think, is really a great way to kind of compartmentalize those. And Randy, thanks for distilling those down. That definitely helps me kind of compartmentalize our work. I know, especially in the rural areas, there can be so much gray area. It's like, you can almost qualify anything as economic development these days. This helps really kind of focus where those activities can and should occur. One thing that I've taken from my short time working with our former CEO, Birgit Close, was this line that I think about every single day, is that economic development truly is a team sport. It's not something that any single organization or entity can do on their own. It really requires collaboration. And that's why it's really important for us to kind of think about our roles within economic development. And that's something that I know I'm always really focused on with our work in Ionia County, as well as the rest of our rural counties, is, there are some efforts that we need to take lead on. There are some efforts that we can be at the table and be a supporter for. Other things that we're the convener. Maybe it's not something where we're the actual ones implementing, but we can get the right people in the right room at the right time. And then obviously for the past year or so with this COVID-19 crisis is really respond, being one of those responders to really kind of move the needle where we need to. And it really helps to have a regional collaborative mindset to implement the things that we're talking about. I'm sure most of you are familiar that there's 10 prosperity regions that the state of Michigan is broken into, and the West Michigan region there on the left-hand side. The six red counties are the ones that the Right Place serves directly, but we all play nicely in the sandbox, all of the 13 counties in West Michigan. I've been very honored to serve with my small but mighty rural team that serves those 5 rural counties outside of Kent. Julie and Jody are on the call this morning, and they're amazing colleagues to work with. That's something we're definitely blessed with at the Right Place. With that regionalism comes an ability to kind of be more competitive on a larger scale. It tells a little bit more of a compelling story when you're able to talk about the region as a whole. I mean, when you look at and see where people are driving from their house to work to school and that sort of thing, you know, municipal boundaries, county boundaries really don't mean a whole lot. So in terms of thinking of it as a region, that helps us be a lot more competitive. I was just working on an attraction proposal the other day, and when you turn it into kind of a drive time versus a county line, it really helps kind of flesh out, you know, some more compelling metrics to kind of pitch to companies. So you can see there's a lot to really brag about there from a regional perspective. And really, like I said, from a proposal standpoint, from an attraction expansion standpoint, that's really, that still maintains the core of what our rural economic development focus, and, you know, in Ionia County as well, looks like. These business retention visits, I like to call them resource visits, that's really kind of the bread and butter. We need to be able to sit down with the companies in our area, or virtually, as it's been, you know, really the last year or so, and really try to kind of understand what the issues are. The question I like to ask is, what is it that's keeping you up at night? What are the pinch points? And, you know, we as an economic development team, and I'm talking about our colleagues at Michigan Economic Development Corporation, West Michigan Works, MMTC, I know Ben's on the line today, Michigan Department of Ag and Rural Development. I mean, there's lots of partners that we try to have kind of a no wrong door sort of scenario, and just try to problem solve. A lot of times it's just being problem solvers, and where can we step in and help relieve some of those pinch points. Sometimes it's a matter of, okay, things are going great, thanks, keep us on your speed dial. But there are other times where, you know, we can really try to step in and help with, you know, whether it's training programs. I know, you know, since things have started to kind of come back in the fall and through the winter, we're back to how do I get people to apply for my open positions, and that really requires a collaborative sort of mindset moving forward. But really, it's in these conversations that we find out about opportunities, challenges, and potential you know, opportunities for investment and job creation. From a metric standpoint, 2020 metrics for Ionia County, from a traditional kind of project standpoint, it was kind of a quiet year, no surprise, but there's going to be some other really sort of impactful metrics that I talk a little bit about later. One of them being those business assists right there at 513. That's a huge number that we've never come anywhere close to in prior years for Ionia County. But cumulative, when you look at back to the start of this partnership with the Right Place, there's some really significant numbers there. Capital investment, new and retained jobs, to have 17 successful expansion projects that we were a catalyst for. That's not something to shake a stick at, and that is a lot of kudos to the ICEA board. Many of you have been here during that time, and that leadership and that partnership with the Right Place has been very productive for the Ionia County economy. In terms of kind of telling the story and really what 2020 looked like, one of the follow-ups to this meeting today, I'll be sending via email our 2020 annual report that is hot off the presses. This is just a couple of pages of it, but it really helps kind of tell the story of where our efforts have been spent this year, the impacts that we've had. There's a couple of testimonials in there. And feel free to share that as you see fit. We'll also have it posted on the Ionia County, the ICEA page on the Right Place website as well. That was kind of like the core sort of traditional economic development stuff you think about, but rural economic development, there's really a lot of gray area too. And this is where it takes a lot of prioritization, a lot of focus, because you can really get spread too thin very easily if you don't take really sort of a focused approach to this. So there's a lot here. I don't need to go through all of it, but things like community development, things like workforce development, training programs, that sort of thing. Capacity building, that's a big one. I mean, a lot of our smaller communities, you might have a part-time clerk or something like that. And anytime that we can help add some additional capacity for those communities, we definitely try to do that. One thing I'm excited about for the year or so moving forward is kind of that entrepreneurial programming. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, but really looking forward to bringing that to Ionia County. And one thing that we keep, and Julie and Jody are probably sick of hearing me say this, but a lot of times you run into that question, if not us, then who? If there's a problem or a situation in the community, a lot of times it falls on the economic development organization for that community or for that county to really kind of pick that up and take it, because there's not a huge glut of organizations like you might have in an urban area to kind of divide and conquer it and take those things on. So it's a challenge, but it's a significant opportunity as well. I know everybody's sick of talking about COVID, so I'm going to try to not to use that word too much, but it really did kind of define our 2020, as it did for probably most businesses and organizations out there. I was only a couple months in when this kind of started going down, and it's amazing kind of it's almost like you hear the record scratch, when something kind of comes to a screeching halt. Had a lot of really exciting things happening at the beginning of 2020, but then we had to kind of pivot to kind of like an urgent care sort of mindset that I put on there. The number of calls that I received from different companies, businesses, that sort of thing. What does it mean to be essential? The different impacts on HR, labor force, layoffs, how do we keep cash flow, that sort of thing. I mean, I'm going to be honest that there were numerous phone conversations I had where the person on the other line, I mean, they were in tears just because of the challenges that they were encountering and really no real roadmap to address them. One thing that I kind of prided ourselves on was we really sort of turned into a clearinghouse for really kind of timely, relevant resources for our stakeholders, for the business community out there, in partnership, obviously, with our chambers, municipal partners, that sort of thing. Trying to get information out there as much we could about the PPP programs, the economic injury disaster loans, trying to kind of summarize, distill down, all of the executive orders that were coming out hot and heavy, especially during the first few months of this, and really sort of connecting to different best practices. The Right Place did a great job of putting together PPE resource directory for West Michigan, and then reopening playbooks, those sorts of things. Utilizing how West Michigan can really be kind of a small world sometimes, and really try to leverage that to get some of those resources shared out as best as we can. And that's where this business assist metric comes in that I mentioned earlier. That really was kind of a defining metric for 2020 for us. A business assist that we classify at the Right Place is something we track where there's a tangible value that's actionable, that comes out of an interaction that we have with a stakeholder or a company or a business in our community. This graph here, and I know it's kind of small, the blue line is 2019, the orange line is 2020. This is all of the Right Place. This is all the 6 counties that we serve, those number of assists. And you can see the comparison. 2020 just blew 2019 out of the water. It's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, that really identified the need that was out there. But on the other hand, it also showed how we were able to mobilize as an organization to really sort of, be a resource to the companies out there and provide resources and value wherever we could. This is specifically for Ionia County, this graph, and you can see it kind of follows a similar curve, kind of the peaks and valleys, but that 513 number that I mentioned earlier, I think the goal for the year was something like 150 or 175. In a normal year, that would have been sort of a banner year, but it just was a completely different animal in 2020. And that's one of the rewarding things about doing this kind of work, is seeing, the resource that we're able to be to companies out here. being the rural guy and kind of heading up our rural team, this is the image that I'm the most proud of. This really kind of shows that we are not just talking the talk, but walking the walk of being a true regional economic development organization at the right place. It's a heat map. The darker the areas shows the higher concentration of those business assists that I talked about. So you can see, yes, the darkest area is there kind of in Grand Rapids, the center of Kent County, but you can see there are some really heavy pockets of where we've really engaged a ton in the rural counties surrounding Kent County that we serve. I mean, I guess I don't want to go over the actual numbers, but this is something that really means a lot to me because it really means that we are having a significant impact throughout the whole region, which is part of our mission. One thing that obviously was high on everybody's radar, which was kind of a new area for us, was the mobilization of the small business grants that came through the state of Michigan, different pots of money, but we kind of thought of them as round one and round two, one in the spring and one in kind of late summer. I don't need to go over the numbers there, but you can see there was quite a bit of dollars mobilized within the community. It certainly didn't even come close to matching the need. I mean, when you've got like the relief program, when we had about $40,000 to work with and almost $2 million of need in the applications, that just really kind of underscored how challenging of a time that was for our small businesses. We certainly appreciate these programs. It really did move the needle for a number of businesses in Ionia County. And I do anticipate there being, another one coming down the pipe. The one we did this spring, we were able to leverage, kind of in the same way. But we've received a whole lot of gratitude and communication from businesses that were the beneficiaries of these, that they've said, this is what's going to allow us to keep the doors open. This is what's going to allow us to keep people employed. And really that's what it's all about. And with that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Scott McNeal. Everyone knows him as Gus. Scott, you guys I have probably had one of the more interesting and challenging years, at least that I've heard of. I mean, Gus Macker is by definition a community sort of business. It requires people being together, and you guys have really had to be resourceful and creative to kind of make it through this. So thanks for being here, Gus. The floor is yours.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Can you hear me?
Yep.
We're pretty fired up here at Gus Macker and appreciate you guys having us this morning. Obviously honored to be asked to do it. The excitement for Gus Macker is to continue to operate in a time frame where a lot of stuff is very challenging, especially in the world of special events, mass gatherings, and so forth. This is our 46th or 47th anniversary of doing Gus Macker. Started my mom and dad's driveway in Lowell. It's the 34th anniversary in Belding, and just kind of been through a long period of shutdown because all of 2020 we lost our tournament season and did not have any events at all in 2020. And actually my last event that I did, I was checking this morning, was 2019. I was in Sparta in September. So it's been 20 some months since I've done a Gus Macker tournament. And the first one we'll do this year is on May 29 and 30 in Illinois. So very challenged by COVID. I know a lot of you probably have been very confused, mad, frustrated. I continue to hold out hope and get excited that we can continue to run these Gus Macker tournaments and help communities out. And we work with a lot of charities around the country. The way we've made it is with the help of people like Travis Alden. I've called him the Fresh Prince of Ionia County because he's helped us survive with state and federal funding. I think there's been 8+, maybe 9+ loans and grants that we have gotten So again, a thank you to Travis and his help in the right place, and just honored to be able to be here this morning and talk to you guys. This morning coming in, I heard that it's the 1-year anniversary of the NBA game between the Jazz and Thunder when they canceled due to COVID. So it's been exactly 1 year since that's happened. And COVID has done a lot to disrupt our normal life, but I'm blessed to be able to survive. And I guess this is my opportunity to tell all of you, thank you for your support. Obviously, Travis, and I'm excited to be able to get out there and actually play. I don't know that I'll do the normal 40 to 50 tournaments this year, but I'm hoping to have 20 to 25. And we're going to be your poster child for making it through the COVID, the comeback kids of 2021. But really appreciate you having me here this morning. Honored to be part of a economic alliance presentation, which I don't usually get to do these type of things. I brought my ball with me and my Gus Macker t-shirt with the COVID Macker man on it. Again, we're downtown Belding and excited to be ready to play ball. So hopefully you all get there. It's March Madness and I'm ready to go. So thank you very much for having me this morning.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Gus. And, you know, I think of, you know, I've known Gus for a few years. We ran a Macker tournament in Hastings when I was the head of the chamber there. Got to know Gus and his team a little bit. And this is a really one of those unique businesses that, yes, it's headquartered in Ionia County, headquartered in downtown Belding, but it has a ripple effect, kind of a catalytic impact on so many other communities, you know, especially throughout Michigan. So I just thought that was you know, kind of a good example to talk about just the resilience of the small businesses in our community. So keep up the good work. Keep up the good work, Scott. Say hi to Patty for me.
Will do. Fire up.
Awesome. Awesome. A couple additional things I want to mention before I turn it over to Jill for a second, specifically about COVID-19 response and kind of leveraging that regional footprint that I talked about. One thing that we experimented with was this concept of virtual roundtables that really encompassed all of the region. One thing that our rural team kind of identified back in the springtime was, because there was no clear roadmap for recovery, especially for our smaller businesses, we wanted to kind of give an opportunity for these businesses to kind of learn from each other. There's no reason, especially since we were starting, you know, Zoom was kind of in its infancy of being adopted back then, but there's no reason that businesses can't share and learn from each other, you know, even if they're, say, 100 miles away. So we kind of experimented with this. We actually ended up having 10 sessions over the course of the year. We had one specifically focused on dining in restaurants, one on independent retail, one on rural tourism, talent retention, winter survival strategies. And you can see the numbers there. We had over 365 unique attendees, over 20 counties, and, you know, a couple of them up even from the UP sort of tuned in. So a really successful experiment that we hope to continue, you know, here and there moving forward. But again, a way to just kind of leverage that regional footprint and help with some best practice sharing that really is impactful for people. And I guess to kind of summarize my piece today, challenges, opportunities, impacts, not just in Ionia County, but really sort of most of the rural counties that we encounter. One of the things this has really done during the COVID-19 situation, it's really helped increase our impact as an economic development organization and foster some of those connections with smaller businesses that maybe didn't know what we did, or, you know, they thought, oh, they're just for manufacturers or that sort of thing. That certainly hasn't been the case this year. And it's really sort of emphasized that importance of having a professional economic development presence in our rural counties. No matter how small your county is, you really need that presence to really be able to mobilize in times like this, especially. Opportunities, we've got a very healthy project pipeline in Ionia County right now, which is great. The last month or so has been very, very active. Companies are sort of eager to, I think, brush off the dust a little bit and do some investment, which is fantastic to hear. Entrepreneurship, my colleagues Julie and Jody have spearheaded a very successful entrepreneur support programming up in the counties they serve, Newaygo, Lake, and Oceana counties, including a business pitch competition, that sort of thing. We're looking to take that successful model and bring it down here to the Ionia Montcalm area. We kind of tested the concept at an Ionia Rotary Club a couple of weeks ago and got, very enthusiastic thumbs up to continue to pursue this. So we're going to be moving forward on that. Obviously, we want to partner with our local chambers and that sort of thing. If anybody's interested in being a part of that, let me know. Something very exciting. And one thing that we're also doing kind of internally at the Right Place, obviously taking input from our rural counties, is we really want to optimize how we serve our rural counties. So we're kind of examining, since we've been doing this for about 10 years with rural partnerships, how things are working, if there are tweaks that we can make to kind of optimize things, because obviously with regionalism being part of who we are at the Right Place, we want to make sure that those relationships are sustainable, long-term, and that we're moving the needle the most impactful way that we can in the communities. Like I said, we love what we do, and the whole point is to make people's lives better. And that's what we're here to do. And I'm honored to be able to serve in that role for Ionia County. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jill May to talk a little bit about how to get engaged with ICEA. Jill, you want to take it from here?
Sure, thanks, Travis. Like Travis said, my name is Jill May. Can everybody hear me okay? Is it okay? Yeah, okay. I know sometimes with these headphones, it's a little funky. And like Travis said, my name is Jill May. I'm with Trisector Consulting. I am the contracted fundraiser for ICEA. First, I have to apologize. I've got some, if you can see me, I've got just some really bright light coming through the window here, so making some funky shadows and lights. So I apologize. Let's just focus on the PowerPoint. How about that? And I was just so tickled to see Gus here. I've spent many a hot summer day in downtown Belding cheering on friends and family that play in the tournament. So it's really cool to see him here. Okay, so just a little bit about me. I have 20 years of experience in leadership positions in the nonprofit sector. I really focus on raising funds for economic, business, and community development organizations across the entire state. I work both in urban and rural areas, and so I understand the unique characteristics of both. So really the theme today and the theme in this work is that economic development is a team sport. It's something that the mantra that we really live by, those of us who do this work. So the nationally recognized best practice model for funding economic development is to engage and mobilize the entire community around economic development as investors and partners, particularly local businesses and municipalities. However, this model was really tough to follow this past year, as you can imagine. As an organization whose mission is to support businesses and communities, we felt it was counter to that mission to ask local businesses and municipal partners to make a financial contribution during an already difficult time. So we stepped back a bit from our traditional fundraising model. For example, many of you may have received our letter last year offering to defer your investment. That was, an accommodation we were making specifically because of COVID. And so that, like I said, we weren't being counter to our mission. Travis, can you move to the next slide, please? Okay. So this is sort of my number one tool that I like to go to when I'm explaining how economic development impacts and really does ripple out into the entire community and all the sectors within those communities. So the economic development successes that you're hearing about here today are advancing the economy in Ionia County. And we know those big traditional metrics in terms of new capital investment, creating new jobs, and that's generating new payroll for our workers. So that new payroll, the new investment, that's new money that's being added to the economy that wasn't there before. And this is how an economy grows, is by adding that new money from outside the economy and bringing it into the economy. And that's how it grows. That's the kind of economic development 101. So what this is this shows typically in a year, on average in a rural county, our economic development and efforts, the jobs that we create, on average, they usually create about $1.5 million in new payroll. Obviously, in 2020, it was a little bit lower because of the pandemic, but that is typically about the average. About $1.5 million in new payroll gets added to a rural economy in a year because of those new jobs. And then this shows basically how people spend their paychecks and how that new money in the payroll then goes into different sectors throughout the community. So this is really how people spend their paychecks. I really wanted to point out specifically that second to the last line here. You can see that's local, state, and federal taxes, that kind of darker red line. So, you know, just from the work that we do, we're adding over $200,000 in local, state, and federal taxes. And so that's new taxes that wasn't here before. That's new income that wasn't tax income that wasn't here before. Another example, which is probably very, you know, being that a lot of our manufacturers help to support the auto industry. Another example might be over the vehicles line right here, that dark orange that's just kind of almost, you know, 2/3 down the screen here. $133,000 in new income being added in vehicle sales. And so that money is a part of all of the industries that support manufacturing and sales of vehicles. Again, new money for the auto industry that wasn't here before. So the idea here is that, you know, through our work, all industries are growing. Yeah, every industry, every business, and every community in Ionia County does receive a return on investment from our economic development efforts. That's what this screen is all about. But in order to continue to build on these successes and achieve a greater results for the businesses and communities in Ionia County, we need everyone in. We need the unified support of every community, every business, and every person. Travis, can you please, next slide? So first, I would be remiss if I don't thank our 2020 investors, you know, those businesses and organizations who, even despite a tough year, were able to dig deep and continue to provide support to the ICEA's economic development efforts. So you'll see here just you know, just want to thank everybody so much. We appreciate your support so much. We've got a lot of our leadership investors, those that are really leading the way in this effort, although we really appreciate everyone. But the county, Ionia County, has been a huge, you know, leadership investor here, and the city of Ionia, the ISD, and all of the public schools that participate, Herbricks, Cargill, all of those that you see here. We just want to thank you so much for your support. Oh, and here we go. Keeps going. It takes a village, right? Like I said, it's a team sport, and look at the team that we've got that's growing. So thanks, everybody. And so today, what I'm asking is that you unite with them to ensure continued economic growth in Ionia County, to ensure that new capital investment continues to be made here, that new jobs and new payroll continue to be created here, new revenues continue to be generated to drive business growth in every industry and every community throughout the county. You've seen over the past year how critical it is to have an organization leading economic development efforts in our communities and supporting businesses in our communities. Honestly, the role of economic development, I feel, has never been more critical than in this past year, and you've seen that in this past year. But we can't continue doing this work without you. We can't continue to help organizations and businesses transition out of this. Because it is a new world that we're finding ourselves in. And although we're starting to maybe see the light at the end of the tunnel, there is still a lot of work that we can do to help support businesses in that transition. And as people continue to operate in our new world. And so in order for us to continue to do this, we need everyone in. It's a team sport. We need you all in with us as partners and investors. And so I'm going to be just following up with everyone here who's here today. Individually in the next couple of weeks. I'll just be calling on you so we can revisit our conversation to see if you can come back to join us again in 2021 as an investor. Whether you've been able to support us last year, I'd ask you to continue that support. If you had to take a break, we're going to see if it might be a good time for you to re-engage. And if not, that's okay too. You know, we're going to just keep working with you to support you along the way. So just know I'm going to be reaching out to everybody. Would like to have that conversation. Love to reconnect with those that I know already. Love to meet new businesses and new folks who I haven't met yet. So I'm looking forward to that. So thanks everybody. And I'll talk to you soon. Travis?
Awesome. Thanks, Jill. Appreciate it. And now to get into probably what everybody's actually here to hear about is a crystal ball type prediction in terms of what the economy is going to do over the next year or so. Right, Jim? Unfailing. But I will say, Jim, it's a pleasure to have you here. I've gotten to know Jim a little bit over the past few years, both in my prior role in Berry County and now with the Right Place. And to have somebody like Jim who not only has all of the resources and expertise of the Upjohn Institute at his fingertips, but also a prior economic developer, kind of like boots on the ground perspective, is really a huge benefit to what we're talking about today. So Jim Robey, pleasure to have you here. I'll drive your slides and take it away.
Great, thanks for having me. And as Travis said, I came from a economic development, site selection, corporate real estate background, and also ran car dealerships. So I am used to being on a team sport. And next slide, please. So I am with, I guess next slide after that. I'm with the Upjohn Institute. For those of you who don't know us, we are what might easily be said an outside the Beltway think tank. We're about 110 people. We're 75 years old. Dr. Upjohn funded us. We are independent of what became now Pfizer and all of that in Portage. I'm one of 14 senior PhD researchers. Half of our people, half of those 110 people are Michigan Works Southwest people. So we're on the very applied side around workforce. We're also doing research into place-based issues. And my background leads me to be part of a small team that works with a very local economic development, the city of South Haven, to Fortune 500 energy company, to the National Institute for Standards and Technology, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. We've worked with MMTC, but as Travis said, both he and Therese are longtime friends and colleagues. Julie now is a new friend and colleague. And so we do need to meet at some point to talk about some additional resources that the Institute now is able to bring to the Right Place into this region. And I am a huge regional fan. The one thing I will note, if you look at our mission, it says nonpartisan, and I say this every time. That's all right, keep going. I know we're a bit tight on time. That anything I say that sounds political is certainly not intended to be. And by the way, greetings from my bunker in Mattawan, where I am Jessica burning consumers' natural gas. Next slide. So a lot of people ask about how this is different. This event is different than the Spanish flu. And I'll just go through this quickly, but know that in 1918, there weren't a lot of data collected. And so manufacturing was a much bigger share of the economy. What we see is from a manufacturing employment standpoint, for data that were available for 1918 versus 2020, the shares of impacted employment within manufacturing are about the same. So in some ways, this is a bit of a repeat. Next slide, please. When we look at, these are all national numbers, we've seen that certainly by 2013, it was a very long recovery till we got back to pre-Great Recession numbers. We had done really well until the first quarter, of 2020, where, and you'll hear me say this annoyingly so, we fell off the cliff. But we've rebounded well, and much of the reason that we haven't rebounded is much of what we've seen in Michigan and other places where there are just regulatory and administrative decisions to not allow firms to be open or to limit capacity. Once we think that goes back into place, that we see that reopening in Michigan and others, we'll see a better outcome to this. Next slide, please. just click through these. So if we had been doing this a year ago, the most of those bars on the left side, which sort of indicated 2 to 4% GDP growth on a quarter by quarter basis, would have been much larger. But then, as I mentioned, in the first quarter, we saw negative growth, one of my favorite economics metaphors. And then, of course, in the second quarter, it got really bad. But we rebounded quickly because, again, this recession was not caused by poor economic conditions in the Pacific Rim, the Eurozone, consumer confidence, or anything else. This was an intentional decision to shut down the economy. Please continue, Travis. What we're really seeing, and this is from the survey of professional forecasters, that's part of the Philadelphia Fed regular series that's done quarterly. Their look at this now is really over the next few quarters. I think we have 5 represented there, somewhere between 3 and 5% annualized growth in GDP. And you'll see shortly some even better estimates than that. Please continue, Travis. Continue, please. What we saw was really somewhat anemic growth through the recession, recovery from the Great Recession. We saw that decline precipitously in Q2. We've seen some rebound there, but until we reopen the economy, that's going to be difficult. And certainly one more click will show us that kind of we're back to where we were, that 140, 180,000 jobs a month. But there are limits to that, and I'll cover those at the end of the presentation. Please continue. We look at Moody's very closely. They're pretty good at predicting recessions. Not surprisingly, in the second quarter of last year, they were thinking that 6 months from now we would be in a recession. And in all honesty, the recession hasn't been called as off yet by NBER, the people that do that. This is a bit of a surprise to me because we have seen pretty positive GDP growth. But really what we're looking at as of December, which is the most recent release from Moody's, is a 1 in 4 chance that in June we would be in a recession. I think that's unlikely unless these new strains have some unexpected effect. Next slide, please. One thing that we watch very closely is the PMI, or the Purchasing Managers Index. Anytime it's above 50, we believe the economy is expanding. There's a lot of discussion in 2019 and going into parts of 2020 whether manufacturing was in a recession, and it appears that it was, and also some in maybe 2016. But we really have seen a comeback here, keeping in mind that many of the companies that you deal with, whether they're small, medium-sized enterprises or SMEs, or your larger firms, often have contracts that are in place. And so, we're going to talk about autos and light trucks in a minute, but there's still those contracts with Ford and GM and those tiers, and with Gerber in Newaygo, that demand hasn't changed. Again, keeping in mind the cause of the recession, rather different than usual. Next slide, please. I think it's important, and I just kind of clicked off for a moment. The market currently, last I looked at, which was about 10 minutes ago, was at 32,400. We continue to see places locked down like California, open places like Texas and Florida, but really divorcing economic conditions, some of the fundamentals in the economy from the stock market. The stock market's thought to be a leading indicator, and certainly is suggesting good news going forward. We continue to see a declining unemployment rate across the US, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Next slide, please. One thing that we've seen is prior to the COVID experience, consumer confidence measures, both by the Conference Board and by the University of Michigan, were at all-time highs. Again, once they fell off the cliff, but we've really seen a return to consumer confidence because, as we know in West Michigan, there are jobs out there that are going unfilled. So people that want to work are able to. There's continued safety nets in places for people that either can't or aren't able to go to work. And so consumer confidence, in fact, there's been some articles that there's possibly as much as almost $2 trillion in money in people's pockets sitting on the side that they don't know how or can't spend. Next. So these are the most recent. These were released a couple weeks ago. And to our Spartans fans, I apologize, but this is University of Michigan's research seminar in quantitative economics. I know that's one you'll be quoting regularly, but RSQE has been the longest running forecasters. They're good friends and partners of ours. And from November to now, their forecast for GDP growth this year has gone from in the 3s to 7 and in the 4s for next year to 6. So there's a lot of strength in the recovery, and certainly passing without any political statement, another $2 trillion hitting the economy will continue to support that. Unemployment growth at about 2.5% this year, 3.6 next year. Light vehicle sales kind of returning back to trend at 16.5 this year, 16.8, and 16.8 is the long run trend that we've seen. And those are annualized million units of cars, light trucks, SUVs, CUVs. The unemployment rate certainly not getting back into the 3s and 4s this year, but next year, which is prior to the COVID recession. We saw the natural rate of unemployment, or NAIRU, about 4.5, 4.4%. So really the forecast is quite good. Housing starts at 1.6 million this year, almost 1.7 next year. The two rate limiting factors to housing starts tend to be availability of workforce and affordability of materials to go in. We've seen that some wood products are up 100, 200, in some cases 300%. And so the cost of building has gone from $150 to $250 a square foot. Inflation will probably see something of that as money hits and people find ways to spend, but that Fed funds target rate of about that's driven by the CPI at 2% is kind of on tap across inflation for this year and next year. Next slide, please. Really, we've seen unemployment filings stabilized. We know that a number of states, including Michigan, continue to struggle to get everybody certified and on. So we're unsure how much of this is noise in the system and how much is actually people filing for new claims for the prior week. But certainly, if you look prior to the recession, those bars on the left compared to the current time, they're still continue to be very high. But we're hoping that they continue to go down. Those data will be released, or were released this morning. I've not seen the new numbers yet. Next slide, please. One thing that we watch closely through this is continuing trends, continuing claims. My apologies. We saw them peak up, of course, in the second quarter, and we've seen them recover back. And these are the traditional types of claims, those folks that filed last week and then filed for the week before. What's missing here, and there's some question about how this will work out, are the pandemic types of things. You may have seen this week that Michigan's trigger for pandemic support for unemployment has gone away because of unemployment rates. Next slide, please. Using the next slide, please. The National Economic Forecast. We use a model called REMI, and so we have it for a number of counties in the state, but also for all the workforce investment boards. We mostly use this for economic impacts that we've done in Calhoun County, in the Eastern UP, and in other places. We also use it to do forecasting, and so I won't say that these numbers are absolute certains, but I think they show some trends. REMI uses a national forecast using data from University of Michigan and the Congressional Budget Office. Then each regional forecast is updated, and I'll share some regional data with you in just a moment. Next slide, please. What you see is the gray line is kind of the pre-COVID, and the dotted line is what our forecast is coming out of it. But you also see here May, August, November, and then the most recent one, the dotted line, March. What we've seen is a good recovery, and in many ways, after 2023, kind of returning to a pre-COVID trend. While our earlier forecast from November was much more positive in the long run, and I don't believe any forecast out to 2023, and Travis will tell you, I'm not sure I believe much of a forecast for 2021, but we really do sort of get back to normal fairly quickly, again, once the cause of the recession is different than in prior periods. Next slide, please. When we look at industries recovering, most do recover by 2025 in our forecast. There are some that we wonder about, like wholesale trade. Again, I noted the issues in construction, public administration. Now that may change given this most recent COVID relief bill with significant monies going to state and local government. Retail trade, we do wonder what that's going to look like in a post-COVID environment as people's consumption patterns have changed. And then sort of the unknown about what's going to happen with oil and gas. Next slide, please. When we look at the forecast for goods producing employment, that's construction, ag, mining, as well as manufacturing. We see a strong, in fact, a better than pre-COVID response. Primarily, we believe somewhat due to reshoring and people bringing supply chains closer, a lot of sensitivity to that there's a lot of product floating off the coast of California and Washington that can't get on shore, that people need to be able to produce things. We've heard a lot about chip shortages for the F-150s, which is my favorite vehicle. And so there's some limited production, but that's expected to return to normal. Next slide, please. National employment for the forecast for the business services sector, which is somewhat might be called the knowledge economy, really is forecast to return to trend fairly quickly. Again, keeping in mind that businesses are trying to get back to a normal status in their client base. Next slide, please. Personal services will struggle for a while. I think we're going to see some exposure, and I'd love to hear from you all if you want to send me an email on what you're seeing with the small and medium-sized enterprises, particularly in personal services. We know that a lot of places around us, until we returned to 50% seating last week, were unable to do anything simply because they couldn't bring staff in an affordable way to service in dining less than 50%. But also, we think a lot of people may have failed through this, and thanks to Travis and the team for all the work they did in supporting small business across the region. Next slide, please. Total output, though, again, keeping in mind that a lot of contracts are in place and a lot of things are fairly firm, demand for food, vehicles, other products, technology, that output really does recover pretty well. Output is the total of sales, essentially, what's comprised of both labor investment and then materials that go into products and services. Next slide, please. So looking at the Michigan economy, next slide. These are the most current ones, and Senator Bison, I owe you some information from a previous presentation, and I wanted to update it with this because we got these just a few days ago, but this is the current state forecast that in 2020, we lost about 350,000 jobs. In 2021, we'll recover about half of those, and then another 50% over that in 2022. Manufacturing employment dropped just under 70,000 last year, up probably about 25,000 this year, 20,000 next year. So not a full recovery. And we have heard from our Michigan Works people, as well as talking to companies, as well as talking to employment folks, that they can't get enough workers to come in. So that could be part of the problem. The unemployment rate we're seeing is declining relatively quickly. And in much of West Michigan, the unemployment rate is already well below 5%. Labor force participation rate, we know that this has been something of a she-recession and also adversely affected minority populations for a number of reasons. One, people being able to get in school, and so people dropping out of the workforce to take care of kids who are schooling from home, along with the fact that many women and minorities work in personal services, so accommodations, food service, and others, healthcare, that were shut down and haven't fully recovered. Next slide, please. In looking at autos, this is something we track pretty closely. You'll see that we fell off the cliff earlier last year, very similar to what we saw in the Great Recession, but recovered much more quickly. What took 5 years to recover through the Great Recession took 5 months to get back. So we are back. This is incredibly important, as it was mentioned earlier in presentations, that light vehicles are very, very important to West Michigan. Next slide, please. When we look at Class 8 truck orders, we think of that as a leading indicator for those who don't pay as much attention to trucks as I do. Class 8s are the tractors of Tractors and Trailer. They're huge capital investments that firms make. And we did see a bit of a recession in the industry after demand was met in 2020, but we've seen a recovery there as we need to move more and more goods. Keeping in mind that many of the issues with toilet paper and other things were not the lack of availability of the product, it was the inability to move it all and to get supply chains in place. Next slide, please. The Michigan unemployment rate in December 2020, we're looking for those new data to come out. Travis, we're probably about 3 days too early to get you January data, was 7.5% for Michigan, 6.7%. So we believe that that's driving down, but when we look certainly at the counties around us, there's a lot of lower rates. Next slide, please. The labor force participation rates continue to be very strong in West Michigan. So people are interested in going back to work. So labor force participation is those people who the share of population either are working or are looking for work. Next slide, please. And these slides are all available through Travis. So please, if you want these, you're welcome to them. Again, next slide, please. In looking at the most recent data, unfortunately, again, the December data, your unemployment rate was at 4%. So now some of that may be that people were dropping out of the economy, and so that may have affected it, but certainly by number of people working and looking for work, you've got a very tight labor market there. After, like everyone else, something that bumped up above 25%. But things are looking good. In fact, employers are probably experiencing what they are across much of West Michigan, which is what used to be a $12 an hour job is a $15 an hour job, or maybe in some cases a 20 an hour job, or some sort of supplemental like a retention bonus or a signing bonus. Next slide, please. The total employment index, you all are doing pretty well. The red line is Ionia County, and you're really bouncing around and keeping in mind that that's within an index of 5 or about 5%. You're pretty close to where you were in the Great Recession. And, you've seen some drop off there, but a lot of that, my guess is in personal services. Next slide, please. Now, these are, by the way, September data. Unfortunately, those are the most current data that we're able to get for this. We see manufacturing by September had really rebounded, and my guess is it continues to be above the pre-recession, Great Recession level, and nearing the kind of most recent COVID recession level. Next slide, please. Service sector employment, again, keeping in mind the impact by September, both in personal services like healthcare and others, and accommodation and food service and all of those sorts of things. We see some struggle there. Continue on, please. When we look at percentage of jobs regained by 2020, we see that a number of sectors have increased and regained, but we still continue to see some areas struggling. And so this is November data. And so we continue to hope that things come back. Next slide. So looking at job postings, and I think much like our colleagues at Michigan Works West, we use Burning Glass to track job postings. It's important to disaggregate job postings from job openings. So someone may post an opening for a CFO, that would be one job, but we know with STNA, CNA, BSNs, manufacturing workers and others, that one posting may actually be many jobs. And so don't look at these as the number of jobs, but the number of openings. So when we look at total job postings, the blue line is kind of the 12-month smooth moving average. We see demand for workers to be relatively constant in Ionia. Next slide, please. When we look for manufacturing, not surprisingly, through part of this, we saw the 12-month moving average when everybody was shut down, move down as we did see actual numbers, but then we've seen a strong recovery there. So there clearly is demand for manufacturing workers in the county. Next slide, please. Transportation and warehousing. We continue to see jobs there. And it's important to remember that within transportation is not only trucking, but rail, air service, pipeline service, all kinds of things comprise this. And so increasing demand. Next slide, please. For retail trade, a bit of a crater early this year, but that's not unusual in a post-Christmas experience. It'll be interesting to see what retail trade looks like. I imagine it'll be more value added going forward as people, I don't know, get socks from Amazon or something, but when they need, more determined goods for a local place, we think that that's where retail will be heading. Next. Healthcare and social assistance, there's always demand for those workers, particularly as we saw people being able to come back with elective surgeries and procedures and others in healthcare, reopenings in those areas. Next slide, please. Accommodation and food service continues to struggle. We know that people are looking for workers. In fact, as we go back, we imagine that this will continue to go as we go, hopefully someday to 75%, and we're able to dine out and enjoy life a little bit more. Next slide, please. So looking at West Michigan Works employment, next slide. Again, we have a REMI model for every workforce investment board. So I'm sorry, I don't have it specifically for Ionia, but when we look at total employment, again, the gray line is the pre-COVID forecast that really sometime this year, employment for the West Michigan Works area should return to normal and then likely be above our pre-COVID forecast from our REMI model. Next slide, please. When we look at goods producing, we look at sometime this year, not surprising, manufacturing employment return to normal, and then really sort of follow trend for a while, but then stay strong. And it's important to remember that this region as a whole from the Great Recession Recovery did better than most places. I think we were the number, including all of us in West Michigan in this, sort of the number 4 growth area in a lot of this work. So continued strength in manufacturing, goods producing employment in West Michigan. Next slide, please. Business services sector, again, looking to that to recover, keeping in mind that many of our industries here are vertically integrated. So they have engineering, administration, production, logistics, and other things in-house. And so within the region. So we really see a strong recovery for West Michigan Works footprint there. Next slide, please. Not surprisingly, until people get comfortable being out, everybody's vaccinated, restrictions are reduced or eliminated on capacity and other things, we really see a much slower recovery to the personal services sector. Also, in a good time, many of the personal services industries are a bit of a risk, and certainly coming out of COVID, will people have the resources? Again, that SME question we continue to deal with. Next slide, please. We really see that most sectors in the West Michigan Works area will come back fully by 2025. Again, a couple that we're a little concerned about are accommodations and food service, oil and gas. We did have traditionally a strong industry in shallow well development here, but where that's going to go. Retail trade, not quite back. We don't really know what retail trade will look like in the future. Next slide, please. Total output for West Michigan Works area, we continue to think it'll be strong. Next slide, please. So moving forward, what are we watching? On the macro economy, the shape of the recovery curve, is it a W? Is it a series of Ws? Is it in fact a K recovery? Is it good for people with education and in certain industries, but it's detrimental and harmful to people in industries like personal services, food, accommodation, those sorts of things? We do have some concern that temporary closures will become permanent. In watching the WARN notices or the filings last year, we saw what was normal traffic in Q1 to temporary closures in Q2 and permanent closures in Q3, but less traffic on that in Q4. So we do hope that most are able to come back. Can supply meet demand? We know that there are restrictions due to products being available, being able to get them on shore. How will this impact SMEs as they provide product up their tier? What will be the new impact of the new strains? Will this be more virulent? Will the new vaccines take care of it? We heard briefly, and I know we're about to hear more about it, the distribution of vaccines is, the question will be, is it actually more of finding people to get it in May and in June and July than it is having the available product at the moment? And the new administration will certainly alter and is altering tax policy, trade policy, and stimulus policy. What will be the effects on the macro economy of that? One more slide, and I'll turn it back to Travis. We think that reshoring is real. We've talked with site selectors in the Eurozone, and people want to invest here, want to bring supply chains close. But the issue is they can't get in country to look at buildings and sites. But mentioning that, we know in talking to Tim Ross and others at the Right Place that the available buildings and sites, the inventory is very low and the quality of the buildings are not good either. We've been working actually with one of our partners to look at doing spec building, because speed to market is incredibly important, as Travis can tell you. We're uncertain how technology will impact employment if people can't get workers or workers get so expensive. Both small and large investments in technology can help alleviate some of that strain. We're currently working with the Manufacturing Extension Partnership in Illinois to ask those very questions. We'd like to expand that, and we've had some discussion with the Right Place folks and others to maybe do a very similar thing in West Michigan. Will people go back to work? We don't know the impact of the stimulus plan. We've heard from businesses that they struggle with this as people are paid well to stay home. But there's also that fear of contracting COVID-19 until people are fully immunized. And then really some of the barriers that we deal with, and I know in Kalamazoo, they've decided not to reopen schools for in-class learning until September. So that puts an undue burden, or an unfortunate burden, maybe is a better phraseology, on families who then need to be at home with their kids, the affordability of childcare, getting people into the childcare industry, given that it's not a high-paying job. So how will that affect it? And then other things like state and regional administrative decisions around openings and capacity. And then again, vaccine and availability of distribution. Next slide, please. This is my contact information. We are doing an updating to our email list. We're coming out with a new regional trends product. So if you'd like to stay in contact with us, you can reach to one of my team, Emily Boyle. Again, Travis has this, and we're always glad to update you. So Travis, I think the future is bright, barring some of these things, but back to you.
Thank you so much, Jim. Yeah, so much there, but that's such a great context in terms of big picture, closer and closer to local, and a lot of what you're saying really sort of resonates with some of the conversations that we're having on the ground as well. So thanks again for being here, Jim. And I know we're running a little bit tight on time, but if anybody does have any burning questions that they want to try to get in, we'll have a couple minutes for Q&A. I think just put them in the chat, and I'll try to moderate that a little bit. And like Jim said, he's available, to have some dialogue via email and stuff afterwards as well. So Jim mentioned one of the big X factors moving forward is going to be vaccination and that sort of thing, which is a perfect segue to Ken at the Ionia County Health Department. First of all, I want to say on behalf of the whole community, thanks to you, Ken, and your whole team for everything that you guys have been doing throughout the county over the last year or so. I'm sure it's been a crazy year, but we certainly want to show our gratitude and express our gratitude to you guys. So thanks for being here, and take it away.
Okay, well, I do not have a big presentation planned. I told Travis I would come in this morning and just give kind of a brief update of where we're at, and then make myself available for questions if you have them. If you think of something after today, I'm always available if you need to get a hold of me and want to ask me a question about whatever. My email is kbowen, K as in Ken, BOWEN @ioniacounty.org. If you have a question about, the latest order or whatever, how can I do this safely, that type of thing, by all means, contact me. Email is by far the best way to get a hold of me because I'm always up and around. I'm rarely at my desk. And if I don't know the answer, I can try to find it for you. So with that, I just wanted to give a brief update of where we are in terms of our COVID numbers in Ionia County. As of yesterday, we were at 3% of tests are positive and 69 cases per million population. Both of those numbers are pretty low in the overall scheme of things, so that's pretty good. Ionia County has followed pretty much the same trend that the state of Michigan has followed. Over the past few months, we saw a huge surge in fall, November, October, November. Then we saw a long, slow, steady decline after that. Throughout the month of February, it sort of leveled off at relatively low numbers. And now things are jumping around a little bit just in the last couple of weeks. And so we're watching closely to see if we might be seeing signs of a spring surge like we saw last spring. So that's pretty much where we're at. In terms of vaccinations, which I know is the hot topic, so far, Ionia County has administered about 6,000 doses of vaccine. That's just Ionia County Health Department, not our other partners like Sparrow and so on. 4,000 of those doses have been first doses. We have used primarily Moderna, although we did recently receive a small amount of Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And most of our doses have gone to the healthcare community, to the schools, to corrections, and to the 65 and over population. So I did want to mention that, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the call for those of you who weren't on yet. Again, we did receive a small amount of Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Right now, we're using that primarily for the agricultural community, and that's seeming to work pretty well. We're burning through those doses pretty quickly with that community. Obviously, the benefit of the Johnson & Johnson is that it's a single dose vaccine. And I can tell you that my plan, and I'll put that in quotation marks because I've had to throw away many plans over the course of the last year, just like a lot of people. But my plan is to also use the Johnson & Johnson vaccine for the general business community, manufacturing, banking, so on and so forth, when those folks are eligible, because I think it makes a lot of sense for us to come in, vaccinate you, and leave. It's less disruptive for everyone. We don't have to worry about a second dose, and then we're done and we can all move forward. So, and that was really all I had in terms of prepared remarks. So again, I just wanted to make myself available for questions as much as anything else. So if anyone has any, shoot.
Thanks so much, Ken. And thanks, Terry, for putting that in there about the upcoming ALICE report for Montcalm, Ionia. Any questions anybody has? I did have one come through the chat to me directly, but are there any questions real quick before I ask that one? Feel free to just unmute if you have a question. Going once, going twice. Okay, I'll just kind of paraphrase the question that I had, and I guess this is more for Jim. Kind of the national thing you keep hearing is just like, you know, slow recovery. There's still so many people without employment and that sort of thing. You know, seeing the unemployment number of 4%, you know, and that's a couple months ago in Ionia County, and the conversations that we're having, it seems like it's a totally different world in West Michigan where you just can't even get people applying for positions. Where does that sort of disconnect come from? Just kind of like the national narrative of there's just not enough opportunities out there. I keep wanting to tell people, man, all these, if you don't have opportunities, move to West Michigan where they're around every corner. You know, I mean, is that, are we unique, or is that, I guess I don't know what I'm asking. That's kind of the vibe of it.
You know, I think it's a great question, and I question some of that too. But, you know, if you look at big places like California, they're still locked down. You look at Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, they're open. We're kind of in that middle zone where we continue to open. So I think part of the issue is there's a whole sector. So, you know, you think goods producing is good. Business services, people can work from home, their knowledge economy jobs, look at what we're doing today, but there's a whole group of people who can't go back to work. And so some of the people that were my favorite servers at places near me are now taking manufacturing jobs because they have regular pay, they get benefits and other things. And so I think it's just that the mix of the economy. And if I can, the senator sent me a question, said, can you comment on the national debt in Michigan's recovery compared to the national recovery? On the last thing, I think we're doing much better. And I think West Michigan is doing better than Michigan. Michigan is doing better than the rest of the economy. But I think we could still do better as we see things relax. Without getting political, I argue with some of my colleagues, but somehow $5 trillion of additional debt at low cost is one thing. But if we ever see a return to some more traditional rates, I worry, but I thank my kids and grandkids every day for funding a better lifestyle for me. So, but again, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but it does concern me. And I mean, we've had people ping us at the Institute to do research because they've got money they don't know what to do with. So why we're necessarily ganging up with more money, but I think there are places that need money, that need direction and other things. So I'm not discounting anything about the fact that there are people in need who can't work, who need support, but the scope and scale of this does make me very, very nervous.
Thank you, Jim. I didn't see any more questions come through, and we're right at 9:30. So Susan, you want to take us home?
Sure, I can do that. So I want to close by thanking a whole lot of people here. So first of all, I want to thank Travis. He's the one who set this up and he did an amazing job. So thank you, Travis, for not only your hard work, on a day-to-day basis, but also setting up events like this for us and coordinating everybody. Jessica, I want to thank you for being our sponsor. We really appreciate it, and we enjoy the support, not only on the board, but also for events like this. And special thank you to the presenters. So Scott, Jim, Ken, we appreciate that you're here, your availability, your willingness to do this for us. So thank you. And, you know, most of all, thank you to everybody who's attended today. I think this is one of our biggest events. And so it's super cool, especially since we're in a virtual world, so we didn't even get to have breakfast. But I do appreciate everybody being here. I do want to remind everyone that we always are looking for board members. So if this morning, you know, this intrigues you, you want to help out, get a hold of us. I think Travis, probably you could contact him and he would bring that to the board. So I appreciate everybody and I thank you all for attending. Hope you have a great Thursday. I had to think about what day it was. That's bad. I'm going on vacation next week, so everything's just one big blur. So anyways, I appreciate everybody. Thank you. Have a great day. Hope to see you guys in the future. Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Hi, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Thanks.